Will, are you ready or should we wait a minute?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're ready. If you guys are, I don't see anybody else who's signed up who isn't already here. So,
Okay, great. Thanks, Will.
yeah.
So welcome everyone to the Budget Committee meeting. This is our second meeting of this city fiscal year. We're meeting to review the district needs statement and to review the priorities and work towards writing a robust request to the city on what this community's district needs are. I'm Felice Farber, co-chair of the committee, along with Gail
Gail
Barron,
Barron.
the other co-chair. So I'd like to thank everyone. We have a small group tonight. Will we have updated survey results? Do you want to run through that?
Yes. Okay. So everybody on the board should have received a copy of this earlier today, but I'm gonna put it up on the screen, so it's gonna take me 1 second to do that. So, to anybody who didn't catch last month's meeting, or I guess it was earlier this month, but we issued a new survey for this year's Statement of District Needs and Budget, about which we asked everybody to rank their top three. Um, And so their top pressing need, the second pressing need, and third pressing need, as are outlined in our statement of district needs. Everybody received this report, like I said, on the board. And so what we found across the board, even by the end of the month, the top ranked issue, in both the first, second, and third, all three of the options, was parks and open space. And when we look at those actually totaled together, we where instead of just doing one, two, and three, so it just ranks everybody's list, 77% of the respondents listed parks and open space in their top three. Following that, we had uh, crime and public safety, homelessness, quality of life, and affordable housing at 32, 28, 28, and 22%. What we did to get a little bit more of a closer look at the top three issues, we asked everybody to identify they viewed as contributing factors for their selection. So if they chose transportation, why did they choose transportation? If they chose parks, as many of them did, why did they choose parks? What did they think of when they thought of as parks issues? And so when we asked them to list the order of things that were contributing to listing parks as their number one issue, the majority of folks said 46.8% said the quality of life issues, noise, graffiti, petty crime, etc., was the reason that they chose to list parks. When you looked into other things that they contributed as parks items, they listed senior services, 43%, youth children's services, 42%, and social services as at 35%. We don't typically see people list those in their top priorities, but when you dig into sort of the underlying root issues, those are actually contributing factors. So then following up, we actually took those contributing factors across the board from whatever you answered. So obviously this would mean that this isn't the answer you chose, but this is the most contributing factor to the answer you chose. And quality of life, again, rose to the very top of that list with noise, graffiti, petty crime, those sorts of quality of life concerns coming in well over doubling nearly, yeah, actually doubling the next highest issue, which was, oh, I'm sorry, not quite, senior services, social services at 207 people listing it. And then, sorry, I'll look at the top actually, homelessness and crime and public safety as the next contributing factors that people chose their issue for. And then, as you probably know, the district needs statement, after we list our top three pressing needs, we have 7 policy areas that we need to respond to. And at the beginning of each of those proposals is a section where we're supposed to list the top concern for that area. Historically speaking, CB8 has chosen an all of the above approach. Instead of choosing one individual item, we sort of list all of them and say that they're all important to us. But when we asked the participants of the survey what they chose for the area of healthcare and human services, they chose mental health care and substance abuse treatment and prevention programs. At 31% of the respondents said that. For youth education and child welfare, after school programs came in as the number 1 issue, which is not surprising. It's in our list usually. Then for public safety and emergency services, general crime rose to the top of the responses with 30%. Then in the policy area of core infrastructure, city services, and resiliency, cleanliness and trash collection ranked at nearly 50% of the respondents, and something that we hear all the time about is cleanliness and sanitation services. And then in the area of policy, the policy area of housing, economic development, and land use, the number 1 issue, according to respondents, was affordable housing creation, with a little over 26, almost 27% of respondents. And then the policy area of transportation and mobility, the number 1 response at 21% was the bicycle network, bicycle lanes, signage, bike safety, etc. And then finally, the last policy area is parks, cultural, and other community facilities. And the number 1 response was insufficient parks or open space, which we all know that the Upper East Side has a very limited amount of parks and open space. So those were the survey results. We could get more granular into some of the nuanced responses that people listed for, types of capital upgrades and whatever. But I'll let Gail and
I have a couple of questions,
yes.
Will. How many community respondents did we end up with?
We ended up with something in the number of 350.
That's
I don't have
great.
the exact number directly in front of me, but
And the other question I had was with the high number of responses regarding parks.
Mhm.
Could that be skewed a little given the fact that there were so many of the pickleball players that appeared to be responding because they wanted more pickleball courts? Not saying that parks always ranks toward the top, but I was just curious when we look at the community input, if that or any other areas are skewed, we balance that against our committee input
yeah,
just to make sure when we come to the priorities.
I do think that you're very correct in recognizing that even in a sample as large as 350, it doesn't take much to skew the results towards one group or another. In the case here, it does appear we have a lot of pickleball people who shared the survey and responded, and so disproportionately, especially it was more evident previous at our last meeting than it is now. I do think we actually had a better response following our last meeting to where we have more of a full interest, but even in a group as large as 350, it doesn't take much to share one group to share it and have the same common value, same common interest, and it rises to the top. I think that's actually where you get into some of the underlying issues, the why you chose the thing you chose, being a very influential thought process of what is it that is affecting the community, and not necessarily the symptoms that we see, which is like park space or whatever, but what could actually go further and improve things, or what might be the underlying issue, would be reflected in those why did you choose this option, you know?
Thank you.
So, well, along with the parks response of being a priority, within that was quality of life issues. Were those quality of life issues related to the parks, or was it the second issue?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let me pull up and see. So what we can do, and if you'll indulge me a couple of moments while I load a spreadsheet to share on my screen, find where it's opening on my device. Uh, we did ask a few breakdown questions per topic area. So if I can find that spreadsheet, here we go. I think this is it. Are we seeing 4 boxes essentially? Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
So if I can go over to oh, here we go. Apologies for slow. The Parks and Open Space tab. We asked them to explain why they chose their choice and provide specific examples, and then also to give us solutions. So this is not necessarily something that we can do sort of in this meeting right now, but all the board members have a copy of this spreadsheet, and you can go through this section here and you can take a look at, what they chose when they chose parks. These are the external, why they chose, what contributing factors they chose. And then we can also look at what they listed in here as their solutions. Those who did respond, obviously some of them expand pickleball courts. East River Walkway, that's much more, typical. What we hear is, expanding the Esplanade. And so we could scroll through here, add another court, obviously, but noise remediation for jackhammerings and constructions, and how that affects your quality of enjoyment of a park, right? More funds for public bins, meaning oh no, actually not for trash bins,
That's for
but
pickleball.
pickleball bins.
That's right.
Get us a bin. These are all pickleball folks, it appears. Yeah, I mean, you just need to scroll through here and see sort of, but you can see some copy and paste here amongst users, and therefore you're probably going to guess that these are folks who have chosen or who have come here through the pickleball group. Sorry. But
Okay. Thanks.
I don't know if we have a great answer for it, but you can sometimes see some contributing factors. So like this person did choose parks, but when they listed, their reasons for choosing parks, they said homelessness and land use trends, and in their response said housing is, finding housing, and cleanliness things such as rats and what have you. It would be interesting to go through and sort of dive into those. But
Okay. Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
And Gail, I apologize if I cut you off if you had.
No, it's fine. My
Okay.
question is whether we want to go through the priorities, capital and expense first, and then determine what our three overall priorities are. How would you want to begin, Felice?
Yes, I would agree with that. If we could go through the list of things that we've prioritized in the past year, capital first and then expense, and we can see what is a priority, and see if we want to reorganize that and come into some additional detail. Our three most pressing issues in the past have been affordable housing, parks, and schools. And I think with parks last year, we may have added kind of a quality of life prime issue. So Will, if you if you have it available, I'm going to put up the list and we can go through each of the items.
Of the budget priorities, right?
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, I can put that up.
And Gail, did you have any more people respond kind of with their priorities?
I haven't gotten everything back yet from Taina because she wanted to take a look at the survey results to weave those in, and she just got those today. And I know Barbara was in Italy, so I don't believe we have the input back from you yet, right, Barbara? I know you're going to work on that. So I think we have information now from the arts people. Heard back from Ed, and he said that the housing issues were fine and that they didn't have to be reworked. So I don't think there are too many other people that we're waiting for responses from.
Yeah, and Chuck said the transportation
was okay.
was fine. Just add more traffic agents. Okay.
So I think we've heard back from just about everyone.
Terrific. So as we go through these items, we put renovate or upgrade public housing. Last year was the #1 priority. That certainly is the affordable housing in this district. I don't know if there are any comments or feedback on whether that should remain a #1 priority. #2, we have upgrading the 19th precinct. I think that issue relates to the parking on the street of an air conditioning system or a generator that supports an air conditioning system for the precinct that is noisy and provides vibrations and impacts the community. Plus the precinct needs working air conditioning. Is there anything else to add to that, Judy?
No, you covered it. The neighbors are complaining. So it's not just the police who are complaining. The neighbors are complaining about the noise.
Okay.
I had something else to add about the police, but I think it's under the other budget. I don't think it's capital.
Is that the call boxes?
No, it's about the staffing of the precinct. So that would be not under capital. It would be under expense, right?
Okay.
And then part of it also is the response, which is the available funds are insufficient or uncertain, which we hear all the time. And the question is there anything that we can do other than continuing to advocate for it? Any follow-up letters or contacts during the year to get them to at least focus on it if they don't provide funding for 26 to provide it for 27. But it seems to me we always get the same answers or respond to us promptly and with specificity. And when you do, then they come back and say, we don't have money.
I'm just wondering, of course, now we have a temporary head of the police department, but Could the community board write a letter to the acting commissioner? I don't know what committee this falls under.
It would be Barbara's, right?
Barbara,
Public safety.
okay, Barbara, could we write a letter from your committee and Valerie asking that it's been years since the air conditioning has been working in our precinct and that it's a problem not only for the officers working there, but for the neighbors residing there due to the noise? And when can we realistically expect a resolution to this problem? Do you think that's a waste of time to write a letter?
I think it's worth going on record.
Mhm.
Barbara, what's your thoughts on this?
Barbara,
And
you
then
should have a.
Judy, do you know how many years it's been that we've been asking for this? I mean, it's at least 3.
Yeah, I don't know, but I can check with the precinct.
Okay.
It's at least 3 years,
At least.
right? But I think it might be longer.
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to have additional records and continue to show outreach.
This is not what can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the physical part is not what we usually have done, although we've done very little with the public. I'm in agreement to it. I don't know, Will, do you have thoughts whether that would be good to write, and who would write it?
Well, all the
I can-
letters, yeah. Go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say I can draft a letter.
And then any letter that comes out of the board either needs Valerie's signature on it, or Valerie and some co-chairs. So, it could be a letter that comes from both the public safety, meaning HSS, but also the budget committee as well,
Yeah.
and is sent to NYPD.
Okay, a third item addresses flooding. I'm not sure how much of an issue this is. We talked about kind of taking this out. Yes, the FDR drive and does get take on some rain, some water, as well as parts of the Esplanade do during heavy rainfall, but I'm not sure this should really be one of our top 3 priorities. Thoughts?
I would move it down the list. And also, I want to say we never put it in there, but the last time we had, I guess it was Hurricane Sandy, at 62nd Street, we had really bad flooding. It came past the Esplanade and into the York Avenue, etc.
And that was 62nd Street?
Right.
Thought it was the 70s that had the flooding.
Well, they did, but I'm saying, but we never talk about the 60s.
Yeah. But that's
But I don't know that needs to be item number 3 on the list.
Okay.
We can see which one we'd like to
flooding
bring up.
generally. I mean, if I will say, and this is part of environment, the sewers are just overflowing all over. I can't tell you how many pairs of sneakers I have to keep rewashing. So flooding generally, not just on that, and the sewer problem is a problem that generally I think is very important.
Okay. And we talked about removing number 4 and taking it off our list. Since that they're already building something and it's not a safe haven, but there's something moving forward there. And so we said we could take this off.
Well, Felice, when I was at the zoning with Adam and Elizabeth, that block came up. I asked them what actually is going in there. I said, I know it's not your committee's, but nobody at that meeting, I don't know, Michelle, if you were at that meeting, nobody seems to know what's actually going into that spot.
I think
Well, I know what goes in the spot. We had a whole meeting about it. It's a group called SUS,
Services for the underserved.
Services for the Underserved.
Right.
They're calling it a welcome center. It is basically going to be a way station where people who have been homeless for a long time will come and be there for 29 days maximum to be assessed of where to go next. Should they go to a safe haven? Should they go to a supportive housing? Can they go to independent housing? And it's sort of a way station. Did I explain it right?
Barbara, do they actually stay there?
Yes, for less than 30 days, so
Oh.
29 days.
So I'm going to put in the chat a link to a meeting that we had where the Department of Homeless Services, Department of Social Services came and shared information about this site so people can go on their own time and go back to that presentation.
Thank you.
And
And
it's
it's
supposedly
been,
opening in December. I haven't been there, of course, in a couple of weeks, but the building looks like, I was just with Wilma and she saw it and said that it looks like it's quite built at this point. It's hard to tell whether the inside is built. You don't get a good view. But
okay, so we can delete this from our list as we talked about last time. Michelle, you had your hands up?
Thank you. Because we're eliminating that flooding, which was number 3, can we move number 7 about an existing high school, expand high school up to that position?
So I would like to hear from the Youth and
Right.
Education Committee
Right.
on this.
Mhm.
And the reason being that the big issue in this district was that they changed the admissions for LRO so that people citywide had priority, not just this district. And so eligible students who lived in this district were not getting spots in that school. They've changed it this year so that it's borough priority if instead of citywide priority. And so my question for the Youth and Education Committee is really whether that has gone far enough in addressing the issue about high school capacity. So I guess my long answer is I think we need more information to see how high on the list this becomes. And we'll follow up with them on that.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Taina because I know.
But
we
what's
will
the
get-
time frame?
Soon. So
Yeah.
that we have enough time to
Oh, soon before we have another meeting to
correct,
vote on that?
correct.
Okay.
Definitely. And also the need for pre-3 and pre-K spots still seems to be something that is necessary.
Yes.
So we might want to pull that up because a lot of young families, if they can't get their children into a 3 or a pre-K program, have no choice if they can't pay for private nursery school or kindergarten, they end up leaving the city. So I think that does become certainly a priority.
Well, you actually have 2 spots now. You have 3 and 7. You know, if you move, I mean, you have, no, 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
So you do have room to move them both up, and I would advocate doing that.
Yes. Okay. The accessibility of the 67th Street Library, this has been going on for a while. If you go over to the library, there's a sign out front that tells you to go to, I think, either the Webster or the Yorkville branch. If you're mobility impaired, walking the 10 blocks to another library really kind of defeats the whole concept of accessing the library. So I think this should be a priority since they keep blowing us off on this issue. Judy, it's something that you've brought up before. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. If handicapped people who are in a wheelchair can't get up to the first floor, and then there's an elevator that takes you up to the second floor. If you need children's stuff is on the second floor. And they do events up there. It's just not fair, I think.
Well, and I think
And
that,
those, though, and it's only, it's one of those lifts that goes between the ground floor to the next floor. It's not a whole elevator system. And those things, I guess, just they don't stay in use very long. I don't know how to put it.
right, and it's just to actually get into the library, right? Like up a hand.
Right. They can come in on the first floor, but then if they want to go up a big flight of stairs to get to the main floor, they have to walk up a huge flight because this thing isn't working a lot. And then when they get to the main floor, there's an elevator, which they don't seem to have that much trouble with. This
Okay.
is one of those lifts. It's not an elevator. So I can't see the expense being that high for this. I think Michelle has a comment on this.
Michelle?
Yeah, I wonder if the fact that this hasn't been repaired in such a long time has nothing to do with the budget, but has to do with the diligence of the people, of the staff in the library. And if they are keeping at it, and they know who they have to call for repair or replacement, and they know the process. And I wonder whether or not they're diligent and they keep at it. I'm wondering if we can write a letter directly to the library staff, calling our concern to their attention and asking them to take the lead on reaching out for repairs. Judy's shaking her head no. Why not?
Because the staff unofficially has been told not to put in any complaints when I went in to see the head librarian. So I'm putting in this complaint because I know this thing isn't working all the time because I'm there frequently.
So two questions.
So it's not the staff's problem. It needs to go to whoever's head of the library, whoever does the library budget, to say to them, hey, you've got to put money in here.
No, I agree. That's who it should go to ultimately. But number one, I'm troubled by the fact that the staff was asked not to complain. They're working here every day.
I didn't tell you that, Michelle. I don't want to get the staff into trouble. So
if it's a fact, it's not to get them into trouble. But okay, I mean, having said that,
that's an off the record comment.
Okay, that's fine. But having said that, I don't see any harm in the library has a manager. Yeah. And just writing a letter to that person to tell them that the community is behind them, that we have put this in our priorities of the capital budget. We haven't gotten any satisfactory response. And can she please pass our concerns along and do what she can to expedite? That's all. If she can't, she can't. If she won't, she won't.
That's a total waste of time, Michelle. I have to tell you. I've had extensive off the record comments with her. That's a waste of time. We've got to write to whoever's responsible for the library and doing the repairs at the various libraries.
Okay, well, having said that, can we get around and find a different person than the one we've been writing to for all this time?
Yeah, I think, Michelle, we can explore writing to the head of the New York Public Library and saying this is a priority.
Yeah,
just to try to get more attention.
And we've talked about this before. Following the actual submission of our statement of district needs, that's when we should probably be writing letters to individual people that we're asking these things of. So probably focus on this for now, and then after this is when we should really be focusing on letter writing to individual agencies and funders, et cetera, as they get closer to their decision-making time.
Will,
So-
can I ask you a question? I know
Yeah.
that you've explained that the Parks Department has its operating budget, but it doesn't have capital funds.
That's
What
accurate.
about some of these other agencies? Do they have capital monies to distribute, or does it come from a different pot?
So some of them do. I couldn't tell you how the public library's funding is set up. I would assume it's actually closer to the way
Parks.
that the parks is set up,
I would think so too, yeah.
where it's project by project, item by item, and it's not really that the public library has their, pot of money and they get to decide where it goes, but it's individual funding sources. And from my experience, whenever I worked in the council as a budget director, we would set aside, a small amount each year over basically a decade, and it would add up to be the full amount for a library's renovation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, so we don't know, for example, even with the lift at 67th Street, when they say there are insufficient funds, if money is being accumulated, that theoretically, when they have enough to pay for it, could be done.
Yeah, we could again,
could
this is
ask that.
following this. We could follow up with a letter, asking, has any funding been set aside for this?
Right,
And
Okay.
CC our local council members who have discretionary funds.
okay. Good, thanks.
Okay, next we have provide more affordable housing for all income, very low, and middle income New Yorkers. Do we want to keep that in? It seems like we have an affordability issue at all levels, not just very low and low. Do we want to suggest on affordable housing, they look at a different AMI? 80% doesn't seem really all that affordable. But again, that may be a different unit that is responsible for looking at this. Michelle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was actually on the last item. I agree with Will about sending that letter and to CC the electeds about the discretionary. But I think maybe we can actually ask our electeds outright about discretionary funds.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the affordable housing here, I think it's okay the way it is.
Okay. Okay, then we have number 7 is a new high school. Did we have a new high school already somewhere else? Didn't we just do that?
I think we were going to pull this up
Yeah, that was the discussion. Was moving it up as if you're going to move out
to 3 or 4. Mhm.
Okay,
And if we find something else that we think would better be suited for number 3 or 4, we can always juxtapose it and change it. But I think we should pull it up to number 3, and particularly to find out from our Youth and Libraries Committee co-chairs whether or not, having moved to only having students come from the borough versus citywide, whether it's made a difference for young people from our community to be able to get seats.
okay. Number 8, we talked about a full structural repair of the Esplanade. We should probably rephrase this. There is a capital project that they're bidding to repair the sinkholes. I think part of the response to this request was that they didn't really understand exactly what we were asking for. But Judy, what is your input on this?
Could you put number 8 on the screen, Will? Thank you. Okay, so this is only repairs they're talking about? We're talking about here?
I mean,
Because we
this,
have, let's not forget Andrew Haswell Green Phase 3, which we don't have a penny for yet either. I don't
so
know if
maybe we should
that
change
comes
this.
in here. I don't know if this thing wants to be reworded.
Well, so there is a project to repair the Esplanade.
Well, there are a bunch of projects.
Right. And I guess the question, are they spot repairs, or are we arguing that they should really do something more comprehensive? And are we kind of wasting a top 10 budget request for this when there is a project to,
Well, first place, 70th Street. I'm getting pictures tonight of that and I'm submitting it to Parks. They believe that all of the 70s is in Phase 3, police.
which
So,
is, I've
which
lost
is
track, which is,
supposed to be done, the bids are supposed to be in January.
okay.
So this maybe moves to a different location, but then we have a piece of the Esplanade further up that DOT is doing, and that isn't moving anywhere. Then we need money for Phase 3 of Andrew Haswell Green, which we don't have a penny for underneath the pavilion. I mean, there are a lot of different pieces here in the Esplanade.
So should we make,
Maybe off, if it's okay with people, maybe off tomorrow, you and I can go over those different pieces and put together something new here.
okay. And then maybe we could make Andrew Haswell Green Phase 3 a priority.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean,
Okay.
because that's going to take a few years to get the money for that.
Yes. And since there is some repairs taking place, maybe we move it to continuing support and we clarify what this is.
Okay.
Okay. 9 is 24 Sycamore Park.
That should go under continuing support, because now we have all the funding for it. From MSK gave the balance. Julie Menning gave part and MSK gave the rest. So now it's a question of the Parks Department just getting started on it.
Okay.
I would put that under continuing support.
All right. 10 are bike lanes, which we've asked for a number of times, and maybe we can rephrase this as a safety issue. And the Transportation Committee passed a resolution on that. So 11 is Andrew Haswell Green. We talked about kind of moving that up and then rephrasing the Esplanade repairs for continuing support.
Right.
We can move that up to, now that we've got 8 and 9 are vacant, since those 2 items are under continuing support, maybe you want to pull that up to number 8, at least temporarily.
Okay. The next is renovate John Jay Park, but I think we just did that. And I guess the question is, do we want to turn that into a funding request for turning one of the handball courts into a pickleball court?
Yeah, I would do that. Because they're considering doing that.
Yep. With a net.
Yeah, permanent court.
Yeah.
So
So we don't get into the fighting over.
no,
Just
I don't
not-
think that'll happen there with one court.
Okay.
I think Bradley has a question,
Oh, sorry.
comment.
Yeah, just on that note for John Jay, can we just include in there, provided that the space is adequate. Because I know 3 of the courts in John Jay, and handball courts in general fit the width but not the length to play pickleball. The back court, which is the most southern court, has a little more space. So I guess it just depends on which exact court, just in that area.
What are the regulation dimensions?
You need 20 feet wide and 44 length. And that's just the lines on the ground. You know, like a tennis court, you need like a few feet of space, like to stand behind the line. The width is fine. It's just the handball courts where the fence is just a little bit too small.
Okay, thank you for that
Well,
clarification.
And actually, I don't know. I remember some folks came in the summer from the Parks Department and maybe mentioned stuff about 96th Street. I don't know if that fits in here at all. But that location was a similar location.
But I think that
Wasn't
I
that,
don't think is in our district.
no, 90, well, it's across the
It
street.
might just be like just over the
Yeah,
border.
but Brad, didn't they convert that at 96th Street to pickleball?
No,
No.
that's still the handball court.
Oh, well, let's put that on the Parks Committee agenda.
Okay, and we can add it as a district needs request here. Number 13 is rat-proof garbage containers. I mean, there's certainly a lot of litter. And increased sanitation pickup would be an expense priority.
Well,
Michelle or Judy?
the new containers that they're putting out, we're supposed to have composting starting October 6th, but my building told me that the city doesn't have enough bins yet to distribute. And all these bins, these new bins that the city is buying for sanitation and everything, I think they're all rat proof. And anything that if the apartment building has to buy it, they have certain regulations, and I think they're all rat proof. Now, unless you're talking about the bins that are on the corner, on the street corners.
I think we're talking about public garbage containers. Michelle, you had your hand up? And Sahar next.
Yeah. About the pickleball conversion, did any of the committees vote on that?
It's been at the Parks Committee discussed a number of times. I don't know that we've had a formal vote on it. Do you recall, Judy?
Are you talking about John Jay, Michelle?
Yeah, the conversion of one of
Yeah,
the
well, it would
handball.
we have discussed it at a committee meeting. It's come up several times. And it would probably be what I call the back court when you walk in, which is the bigger part. If Parks, they're looking at it.
I just think that before we formally request it, we should have a resolution asking for it.
Well, the Parks Committee could do that if they will bring it to us if they decide to convert the back part. There will be one handball court or tennis wall that will remain. And if they decide to do that, they'll let us know. And of course, we'll have a vote on it.
How many courts are there now?
No, there's one.
Handball.
Isn't there, Brad, if you correct me if I'm wrong, there's just one handball court front and back.
There's
So
two.
So
there's
then
4.
you're getting.
So there's 2 walls. So
Oh,
each
2.
wall has like 1 court on each side.
Yeah, right.
So there's 4 handball courts.
Oh, 4?
How-
Okay, sorry.
Oh, 4. So you're just proposing changing one of the 4 handball courts to pickleball.
Correct.
And
I
it's the
think
largest one to accommodate the pickleball measurement requirements.
Yes.
I think that's fine, but I think that there should be a resolution from the Parks Committee before we ask for it. Even though I know Judy says if we ask for it and they do it, they'll come to us. but I feel more comfortable doing it the other way around.
It has been a topic of conversation at many Parks Committee meetings, and it's been the Parks Department that has come to us and said that they are planning on doing it.
Oh, so it's a fait accompli if they're planning on doing it.
No, they'll come and tell us, Michelle. They haven't. Felice and I had a meeting with the commissioner and a whole bunch of parks people Friday. And this is one of the things they're talking about. They'll come back to us if, in fact, they're going to do it. And we will tell them that we want to have a vote by our board if they're proposing to do it. They haven't made up their mind to do it.
Okay, let me make a comment about the rat-proof garbage cans. We, in my building, for many, many years, I mean, many, many, many years, converted to the rat-proof rubber with a lid, substantial size garbage cans with wheels that can be wheeled out to the curb at the appropriate time. I want to make sure we're not asking for the ones that I have seen in the press where they're talking about these wide rubber bins that are almost like the construction bins that we see around that are metal, that when there's construction on a building, they use those bins that are then picked up by their private contractor and emptied and returned. Because
No, I think what we're talking about are the public street corner garbage bins. I think kind of like what you see in Midtown, where you have to step on it to have the lid
yes,
open.
okay,
So-
that's fine. Yeah. So that's a normal size. They're a little higher, you know, than the cans that are there now, but that's a normal size. I don't know anywhere, have they asked us to comment on those wide ones that they're proposing to put that businesses get and then they stand it on the street? Because it's ridiculous. They're enormous, the size of a construction bin, and there's no need for them when you can put normal size rat-proof cans out, like the ones you're describing, the ones I have in my building, you know.
Yeah,
so
I think they're separate issues. And we haven't been asked to weigh in on those, and I think those are privately funded, not publicly funded.
but they're mandated.
Mandates aren't,
And-
just
and
because
the
they're
si-
mandated doesn't mean someone else that the city is paying
And the
for it.
size is mandated. Do you think we can put sort of like a little addendum onto this one and say that we'd like all these garbage cans to be of standard size and not oversized wide ones, whether they be on the corner or in front of businesses? The others would be terribly unsightly, and this is an opportunity to make a comment.
Okay, well, we'll look into it. I'm not sure that this is the appropriate spot for it, or whether there's a better way of commenting on that.
Okay, any way you can find to comment on it would be fine.
Okay.
Sahar is next.
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you so much for this. So I just wanted to, I had two things. One was in relation to, I wanted to ask about Rupert Park as well. That do we have any request or any anything related to that? Since it was supposed to go through construction, hasn't. I know a lot of resources have already been assigned to it, but I was just wondering if we have anything for that, because I don't see it. The other was definitely what I think Michelle was just mentioning about the bins, and I think that's already been covered. So I think that's that. That was my second comment.
So because Rupert is theoretically funded along with the restrooms, and so it's not an ask, it's kind of listed as the #1 continuing support, but I redrafted the parks description to make it clear that moving forward with Rupert Park, the reconstruction of Rupert Park and the construction of new restrooms in the park is a priority and needs to move forward right away. And then it's something that Judy and I spoke to the new Manhattan Borough Commissioner and her staff about on Friday.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Thank you so much. I think that's about it because I just wanted to pick that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a priority and is a little frustrating at how long it's taken.
Yeah, exactly. It's been so many years and the resources have been sitting, but yeah, we haven't moved forward on that. All right. Thank you so much.
Barbara Rudder.
Oh, thanks, Gail.
Sure.
Barbara? You're unmuted.
Okay, great. I just, in terms of the bins, Judy called me to ask about it. I'm waiting to hear from my co-chairs, but I would like, we're having a committee, I hope, to discuss the fact that there will be, whether it's now or a little bit later, composting. I think that maybe we'll try to combine and ask about those, because I know there has been discussion about the size of the bins, and I think we all wanted bins and not the white horrible bags on the street, but maybe it could be a little bit better. So
Okay, thank
I hope
you.
the Environment Committee does talk about that. This sanitation part of the Environment Committee, we should say.
Thanks, Barbara. Okay, if we could scroll up to number 14. We have Samuel Seabury Playground. Judy, is this a top priority?
I frankly don't know much about it. Steve said it needed funding. So
Okay.
I guess, this doesn't get funded unless we go to our elected to fund it. I
So
think it's Keith.
one of the things that Steve also said needed funding was the reconstruction of the bathroom at, I think, 87th Street in Carl Schurz Park.
Right.
And given the number of times that the request for bathrooms has come up in committee meetings, I wonder if we should prioritize funding for the rehabilitation or reconstruction of the bathroom at Carl Schurz Park over this.
Yeah, I would have no problem with that. Or maybe keep this in there and I think we need to talk to Steve more about this. I'm not sure exactly what they need there and what they want to do. I'm making a list.
Okay.
Judy, out of just curiosity, where is this playground located?
I think it's like 95th Street.
Oh, so it's further
Yeah,
north.
I was
Okay.
going to say 94th, but I may be off, and Lexington. It's right by a school.
Okay. I knew where it was, but I didn't know the name. Thanks.
Yeah. Right.
I think at the last meeting, we talked about taking out the catch basin at the northwest corner of 72nd and 2nd. Sahar, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was actually just going to state that we can take this one out. We discussed it. So yeah, and you said the same thing and I raised my hand. So yeah, we don't feel that, because recently we haven't seen this so much, especially Addison, our Barbara and my co-chair. He said that he's seen it, he lives nearby. So yeah, we can take this one out for the time being.
Okay. And like accessibility at the Yorkville Library, I think is still a priority. And I just noticed number 17 is the restroom at Carl Schurz Park at 87th Street. So maybe we flip it around with Samuel Seabury and make the bathroom more of a priority. Well, we'll check with Steve's. But do folks have thoughts on that? Bathrooms have certainly come up as a priority. Michelle?
Well, before you get too far past it, I just wanted to suggest that we ask the elected officials to make that library accessible. It's not that costly to put in a ramp rather than wait 20 years for the city to do it. I would say we specifically ask them.
Yeah, and this has been on our ask list for several years, and I don't know how
Exactly.
far it goes back, but
Exactly. And even if it were approved, it'll take forever to do it. If we can ask the elected officials to throw money in, I don't think it's that costly, and I think it's important, very important.
okay. Okay, and then we have in repairs to Stanley Isaac's playground at 96th Street, to put in seating and lighting and improved playground. Judy, do you recall whether additional work has been done here or whether funding was already in place for this?
Well, they did the rink,
Right.
but everybody said it would be nice if the link were lit, etc. But they didn't. I think it still needs seating. It needs a little more work there. That's not completely finished from my point of view.
Okay.
Since there are so few of us, could I suggest, since you and Gail are calling on us, that we just unmute everybody and we can keep talking when you call on us so that we don't have to look for the unmute?
Sure.
Yeah,
Good
that's a
idea.
great idea.
Yeah, everybody can unmute whenever they need to, but I'm gonna mute you back if you stay unmuted, okay? That way nobody accidentally says anything.
Barbara, you had your hand up?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I do want to stress that 87th Street bathroom is an important one. It is the access to the Esplanade. It's right by Gracie Mansion. And even though it's not the playground, it's a place where kids go a lot. It's very crowded there, and it's an important bathroom to have. People do use it and need it and so on, because there's no other bathrooms around. So I would talk about that. The other, in terms of the rink, my memory is that it was the hockey league or whatever it is that was redoing that rink.
They redid the rink. They just didn't do anything
didn't
else
finish
other
it?
than the hockey rink.
So
So
you
there,
can go to them and ask them for more money.
I think it's something that we have suggested be done at a Parks Committee meeting. But they rebuilt the hockey rink. They haven't done lighting, seating, the playground over there.
Remember when they came to us, right?
Yep.
But I
And
would
then-
like the bathroom on 87th Street to be a higher priority than something else. That is a very active section of the park, and therefore,
Should we move that to a top 10 item?
yeah, I would like that.
Okay. Is there anything that we're missing in this list? It is very heavy on reconstructing the parks, but that is a capital intensive item. So is there something that's not on this list that should be?
Felice, where did you put the vendor comments?
I think those are expense items, not capital.
Okay.
I don't know how to phrase it or what to say, but I do think that our sewer system needs to be looked at and seen what to do. I'm not sure what there is to do at this point. I don't know, maybe Will help me out with it. But that is a quality of life. You see people just really angry at every street corner.
Well, I think that's a question of cleaning the catch basins so that
Yeah.
they actually work as they're intended.
Well, it isn't just that leaves are clogging it, it's more that just not going down.
It could be, every time you see some construction project and the runoff of from some concrete operation goes down and that clogs up the catch basins and
Oh, so the catch
hardens and
basin underneath, right?
Is
Okay.
there a routine maintenance program of these sewers? I mean,
I think
I'm
there is.
sure.
I think if you look at the city's MMR, the mayor's management report, that is a catch basin maintenance is one of the statistics that's measured, I believe.
do they mention it by address or location?
No, I don't think so.
So can we just call this to their attention?
I think it'd be helpful if we could say there are specific catch basins that are continuously
That's what I
clogged.
mean, the ones that we've observed that are flooding.
Barbara, if you have specific ones that you can say these are constantly flooded, we can, or overflowing, I think that's something that we can call.
87th and Second is always horrible. Now I have to think there's been several, and I can't picture them offhand. I do know 87th and Second, since that's my street corner. It's impossible. It's both like, how do you cross except in the middle of the street?
Okay. So just looking at the top 10 priorities, we'll keep in NYCHA as 1, 19th precinct as 2. We'll move up the library, 67th Street Library is 3.
Elise, did you want me to put that spreadsheet up that I have for new numbers?
Sure.
Would that be
That'd be great.
easier? Okay, great.
Mhm.
Felice, you also had 3 and 4 for a new high school and new elementary, or more seats, so how
More
are you
seats.
doing those?
We don't need a new elementary based on.
I meant more seats.
More
Well,
seats
so we
for
don't need more-
pre-3
we
and
don't need-
pre-K.
Yeah, we need more early childhood,
Right.
which I wish there was a way of getting data on that. Maybe Julie Mennon's office has data. Okay,
Well, I
so
want to make sure that we hold those 2 slots for them.
yes. Well, so do we want to, given the community priorities, what do you think should be the top 3 issues in terms of a capital budget request? Do we more or less keep it in the same order that we have, or would you substantially move things around? I would make the early childhood one higher up on the priority list, because that's something that always comes up.
Will, what's on the screen, is this the study priority or is this ours? Where's our priority?
This is what, so the priority that's listed is it was just the same sheet that we were reading before. It's
Oh,
in
so
that
that's
same
a
order.
result of the
This
study.
is no.
Oh.
This is the same thing you were just looking at, but just in
Oh.
a spreadsheet form. And that
Okay.
way we can add a ranking, a new ranking next to it, so that Felice and Gail don't have to watch the video again. And
I get it.
Michelle,
Okay.
these were the
Okay.
fiscal year 25
Right.
priorities
Okay.
in our
Okay.
current district needs statement.
Okay, thanks.
Well, maybe number 4 we were going to delete, so why don't we just put an X through that or something?
We were deleting 3 as well.
Yes,
And we're deleting-
or moving that lower on the list or somehow rephrasing it.
Right. Correct.
lower.
Yeah, maybe
Lower.
that becomes 18 or something.
This doesn't have to be exact. It just gives us a good
Yeah,
framework.
and then I mean, I would still keep the 19th precinct as a top one.
So one's gonna stay one.
One will stay one. Do we want to make two early childhood seats? And three is the 19th precinct?
I think that's a good idea, flipping them.
Does the 19th precinct know that we have this as priority?
They do.
Yes.
Good, okay.
So early education one. What number was that before? Do you recall?
I do not. I'm not sure we had it in there. I think we.
See if I can find it.
I don't think it was there.
I don't
I
think it
don't
was
think
there.
so.
We were
I don't
adding
see
it.
Mhm.
So we could add in, two early childhood seats.
It may have been in the narrative, but not in the priority list, I think.
Okay. 67th Street Library is 4, or should that be 3?
Well, if 3 is the pre-K and pre-3, and then where did we want to put the high school seats?
I think we need to get an answer from Taina and those folks
Right.
about high school. So we'll leave a spot open for that.
That's what I was going to say, just so that we can figure out where we might put it when we get more information.
Okay. So 4 is the lift at 67th Street. I might recommend moving the bathroom up in Carshers Park at 5.
What number was that before?
That was a good question.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrew Haswell Green is currently 11. Do we want to make that 6 or the higher than 6?
I think 6 is fine.
Okay, so that's currently number 11. And then I think we can keep the others in the relatively same order. Unless we want to move the other affordable housing programs higher, which is currently number 6. Or have it as number 7.
I think we can leave the rest as is. And then when we add the high school based on whatever information we get, we can tweak at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, so now expense requests.
I'm gonna use this document because I think it's a little easier for everyone to read.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would keep the community board staffing funding as number 1. So we have,
Elise, before you go on, we only had one item under continuing support. Can we put some of the
Good too.
parks that they're
Yes.
supposed to be working on? Can we list those parks like St. Catherine's, Rupert, whatever they have money for, 24 Sycamores, can we list those all under continuing support so we don't they don't forget about them?
Yes. I'll put together a list and you can just double check that everything's included there. Okay. And we have 29 expense budget requests. We have Fund 3K and pre-K seats as an expense budget. I guess it is an expense and a capital budget. Because you have to build the schools and you have to staff the facilities.
Mhm.
Police, I just want to go, and this is under expense, I think. I want to talk about the police again. ESNA had the commanding officer, Zuber, at our annual meeting. And I just want to read you one thing that he told us, that he currently has 150 officers versus in the past, just before he came to the precinct, they had 225 officers. And the last meeting I went to, which was a couple of meetings ago, he was talking about something that was going on in the district. And it ended up that that particular night, they had only 2 police cars out in all of District 8 if something happened. So I think it's important in our expense budget to list somewhere near the top that they need to increase staffing for the police department in New York City and particularly our precinct.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think they're
Mm.
not getting applicants, and that's the problem.
Right.
Uh,
No, I think they've
There's a big
cut the number
decline
of
in
classes they've
applications.
had.
I think they don't have the money to hire people, Michelle. So
But there's a big decline in
maybe,
applicants.
but I would ask that their budget be increased. I for
agree.
one, as much as I love parks and everything else that we're talking about, I think the police are really very, very important. And the part of the parks budget that has the PEP officers has also decreased. And I think those 2 areas, we need to ask for more money in parks for the PEP officers, which are the police enforcement, and the NYPD.
I
I
agree.
think you're right, Judy, because even when you look at the survey from the community, the quality of life issues, and once again, crime. And when we had our forum with women and families, we found that yes, murders are down and all, and they talked about overall crime being down, but assaults are not. So there are a lot of other things that are still happening, and the need for more of a police presence, I think, is really essential. So I
And
agree
for the
with you.
pet, and for the
And for
pets
the PEP,
also.
both. Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I had an issue with the PEPs. Central Park is completely overrun with non-compliant cut fruit vendors. Cutting fruit on the street in New York is illegal from a health point of view. And so these people have no vending license at all. However, they are in the park by the hundreds. And I meet with the Department of Sanitation, who is now the enforcing agency for that. And they inform me that they can't really go into the park, that it's for the Central Park precinct. And so I was in touch with the precinct and with Trisha. And while they're aware, she didn't say this demonstratively, but I'm sure part of it is that they don't have the staff to go in there. And that also hurts not only the safety and health and all that, and the feeling of the park, because there are general merchandise vendors in there too, but also undercuts those legal park vendors that pay a fortune for vending permits, like $250,000 a year to vend in the park. So it's unfair. So I'm all for that. I think we should make that case very firmly.
Yeah, no, I'll add the 19th precinct and Central Park precinct as well to that request.
And also we have a member of the public, Elaine Reitman, if we could unmute Elaine.
Yeah, Elaine, you need to look on your device for a prompt asking you to unmute right now and
See
push
it.
the
Okay,
there you go.
Great, thank you. Yes, I wanted to just jump in and say I agree with the funding for the police and especially PP officers. I'm a dog owner and I walk my dog all the time in Carl Schurz Park, and I see safety issues all the time there. You know, sometimes there's angry homeless people, there's people throwing food to pigeons and squirrels, which attracts rats, which is a health hazard. On the promenade, I see mini motorbikes and even motorcycles going fast on the promenade, which I don't think they're allowed there, but they're definitely using it as a roadway. And there's also dogs that are off leash that owners don't have control of and don't clean up after because the dog's far away from them and the dog's doing their business and the owners have no idea. So I think it would be really helpful if we had funding for more PP in the parks. And I've also seen the fruit vendors, as was mentioned in Central Park. So
Thank you. And Bradley?
thank you.
Yeah, I just
Thank you,
want
Elaine.
to echo Judy's comments about PEP and the other items. I think this is important to the community and, you know, definitely make it to be a safer place. I think it can help to address some of the quality of life issues from the beginning of the meeting. And I just wanted to echo some of those comments.
Thank you, Brad.
Sanitation is something that's come up a lot. When I was at the recent street fair, folks came up to me and commented a lot about litter and garbage on the streets. It's something that's come up in the survey. So I think increased street cleaning, increased sanitation, perhaps is something that we add to this.
Have they decreased the pickup schedule they had for a while? Did they reinstate it? Remember
So Julie Menon was in my building recently, like talking to residents, and said that she had funded through her own budget increased sanitation pickup. So I think this is something that we want to continue to ask for.
But it had been cut back. Is it in the cutback position or was it returned to what it was prior to COVID?
I'm not really sure.
So maybe we can check on how many times a week they actually are currently doing pickups. Just so we have that information.
Yep. Yep.
And also, if I may add here, that if they say that they cannot increase in every street or every space, at least on the main avenues and the main, cross junction, like, like maybe the 79th and the 15th, like, like all of those main ones, at least if they can increase on those, I think that would also make a difference. And that was also something that at the street fair, I also heard a lot from the neighbors. Of course, every street should be, but if it is a budget issue, then at least some parts we can start with those.
Okay, thanks.
Lise, what number should I be showing right now?
So I kind of jumped around. I think just in terms of priorities, keep the community board funding as 1, police as 2, PEP officers as 3, increased sanitation is 4, maybe early childhood education is 5, if folks agree. And then
That sounds fine.
Then we had as originally as 2 and 3, mental health services for homeless, and summer youth employment programs.
Well, with the mental health services and the outreach, homeless services outreach, we have it throughout the district, but there are certain streets like 86th Street and Lexington where you can't walk without meeting one or two homeless people, no matter what time of the day. So in as much as these agencies ask for as much specificity as possible, if there are certain streets where we particularly feel that the outreach folks should be encouraged to go, that could be helpful as well.
Okay.
Barbara? Your committee, and I know you deal with that, Barbara.
Am I unmuted?
You
Yes.
are.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is we don't have enough meetings. If you would add Second Avenue between 86th and 87th, there's scaffolding, and I think that encourages homeless people there, but it's as for uncleanliness also, without going into details.
And then I would add Second Avenue between 79th and 80th.
I think we need a lot more of the I would keep the outreach and mental health workers.
Yeah, and
The one near me, I never see anybody coming and talking to her or anything like that.
It becomes a safety issue, a sanitation issue, and
Health
then
issue.
people
It's not
need
health.
assistance.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I see Corey Brown has his hand up.
Yes. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, my name is Corey Brown. I live on 82nd in York. I really liked what the earlier speaker Elaine had said about having more parks enforcement. I'm taking a walk like every day in all different parks. I like to play tennis at John Jay. And just would love to see more enforcement because I see a lot of kind of things that I feel like are against the rules happening. Would love to just know that the parks are being kept safe, and there's some people there to help enforce any rules.
Thank you. Judy?
I'm sorry, I stepped away for a minute. Are we talking about locations for homeless people?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, the 72nd Street subway station on the west side of the street. I mean, they're forever there. I mean, I think they know about them. And then we have a fellow across from 301 East 63rd Street in front of the lot on the street, not on the avenue, who's there every day.
Okay. And then I think I mean, we can't clear people off the street that are not um that are not menacing, that's not but we can point these out as the need for additional mental health services and ensuring that these people get the help they need and that we don't have any sanitation issues or safety issues impacting people. Barbara?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, good. I had just time doing that. In fact, that isn't 100% right. It isn't that you can make them go, but we're supposed to have outreach people that come when they see somebody habitually on the street to come and talk to them. You see that periodically. You'll see somebody hovering over a homeless person, and that's somebody from Lenox Hill Neighborhood House, or Goddard is here partially, one of those agencies working. I have not seen much lately. I used to see more And that's why I think we need more. We need somebody, but they go and try to convince them to go to a shelter or to some other type of program, get off the street. And sometimes it takes many, many tries to get them to do so. These are habitually homeless people that are on the streets. So even though you can't make them go, we need more outreach to try to encourage it.
Or to get them the services that they need. So,
Mhm.
Well, to encourage them to get the services they need. Some of them just won't leave.
okay. Okay, so now we have increased funding for summer youth employment programs, or continue to support summer youth employment programs. The mayor had a funding request his first year and increased that number, and I'm not sure to what extent it has stayed as a high funding number. The survey came up with a request for additional services for seniors. I don't know if there's some more specificity that we can add to that, or something specific that we can be asking for. I've kind of jumped around a little bit.
What number is that, Felice?
I don't see it on here, actually.
Oh, I saw it.
We talked about the Isaac Center.
Oh, it's number 5. It talks about youth and adolescents. Yeah.
Yes. And then we talked about youth programs at the Isaac Center. I know there's some issue about giving priority to NYCHA residents in those centers. We talked about increased funding to support local food pantries, which is number 7. I think is something that we still need.
Definitely. The numbers have gone up a little.
Why don't we make number 5 more general? Provide additional funding for youth services, youth and adolescent services, and senior services. And we can say in facilities such as, and then add others, or say it's.
So you have to make the request to an individual agency. So senior services would be through a different agency than the
yeah.
Department of Youth and Community Development.
Yeah. Well, all right, on this
Well, we
one.
can do both. We can
But
have
they
two
have to be
separate
different.
requests, right?
Do they have to be different number items, Will?
Yes.
Or can you?
Yes,
Yeah.
different
Okay,
agencies.
so
Right.
for number 5, we can keep it for this same agency, but rather than just specify at Isaacs and Holmes, just say additional funding for youth services, and youth and adolescent services in general, and in, something like such as Isaac and Holmes, but making it clear that we're not necessarily prioritizing them.
Well, I think there were 2 separate issues, and because we're not limited to the number of items that we can have here, I don't think we need to consolidate it. One was additional funding for summer youth employment programs, and that's kind of broader than youth services at Isaacs and Holmes. And I think that issue is they wanted not necessarily people over the city to have priority, but that residents of those buildings have priority to access those.
All right, in the youth services one, though, the general one, instead of just saying summer programs, can we say summer and after school programs?
Well, so SYEP is a specific program that has a specific funding source.
So if we don't have after school I thought I saw it listed somewhere, but if not, if we don't have a limit in the number, can we put the other one right after these?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be good.
We have number 6, the parks maintenance workers. I'm wondering if we want to move that lower down on the list. Judy?
Me personally, I'm not inclined to move that down. We don't have enough workers in our parks. So me personally, I would leave that as a high priority, especially with what's going on in some of our parks now that don't have workers.
Okay. Okay, no, that's a good point.
Especially since we have to be calling the police in, so, and the PEP officers aren't available, so I think
Well, and I think,
I would ask for that.
and parks maintenance staff, I think is important as well, because we talked about, you know, the priority is for keeping parks in good condition and open space. So, okay, that makes sense.
If I may also say the
Yeah.
same thing, that like some of these parks don't like have a proper gardener designated to them, or like is covering such a huge district that is hardly ever coming. I mean, I can give example of Rupert Park. So I feel like we definitely, like, are the gardeners also included in this? Because I feel like we should keep it priority, because otherwise, you know, those that are not conservancy and are under the, you know, parks and recreation, those parks are really suffering, and they haven't had, so we definitely should keep it priority.
Okay, well, that's a good point, Sahar.
Yeah, thanks.
So we have 7 supporting food pantries. 8 is addressing the open work orders at Holmes and Isaacs, and I will look at the data to see if this has changed.
Can we scroll down to 8, please?
Okay. 9 is more permanent housing for homeless people. I'm not sure if anything needs to change with that. The mobile food vendors, I think,
I would
Michelle,
change
you
it.
provided language.
Yeah, I would just do other wording because they changed the agency. So now it's the Department of Sanitation. However, it's always unclear because the Department of Sanitation will work with the Department of Health and Worker Protection on enforcement. Now that's for food vending. The Department of Consumer Affairs and Worker Protection is not an enforcing agency. For general license vendors, they are a licensing agency. So I think you sort of have to say funds for additional Department of Sanitation inspectors for regulation and enforcement, not only food, but of mobile, of food, just food and truck vendors and fruit vendors. Department of Sanitation, however, does not have jurisdiction over outdoor dining. That's the DOT.
Okay.
Well, we could do a separate
You can do a
number
separate
on the
one. It would be
DOT.
appropriate to immediately follow so that there's some continuity.
Mhm.
So enforcing agents for the outdoor dining program, so that would be sent to the DOT.
Yep.
And
Okay.
that would become number 11. So at number 10, you're substituting DCWP for funding for additional DOS, Department of
Yep.
Sanitation
Right.
inspectors. Okay.
One thing that has been talked a lot about at a number of the board meetings and committee meetings about is the need for additional enforcement of electric bicycles.
Mhm.
And so there's a request for additional. Is that just the additional traffic agents that does that enforcement, or who does that enforcement? And then,
It's traffic, it's the police. You know, there was a horrific fire caused by batteries. I don't remember yesterday if it was in the Bronx or in Harlem, but it was a terrible fire. And they found many batteries on the premises and a burnt up bike right outside. So, the police do the enforcement, but should Environment Protection get notice about that or request for that as well? Don't
think
they
that-
have a buyback battery program? Not a buyback, but an
yeah, I think it's
exchange?
I think that's a different issue about than these electric bikes not following traffic rules.
Oh, you
Right,
don't,
it's a
I see.
safety issue, definitely.
Yeah,
And not being able to
safety.
hear them and having them go at 35 miles an hour. No licensing.
Well,
Okay.
would you like to call for licensing?
I'm not sure that's a budget request, though. I think that's more of a legislative issue.
Exactly, yeah.
But I see that Sahar, then Judy, and Barbara have their hands up.
I think it was Judy, then Sahar, then Barbara.
Okay.
Judy?
Okay, so if I got this right, the outdoor dining is DOT. Other expense requests for DCA, it's not the Department of Consumer Affairs anymore. Will can tell us what they're called these days.
So the
That
top
department has
line
a,
request is always a selection from a pick menu that we have to choose from. So I don't type that out. The
no,
explanation
but
I
that's
type
the
out.
wrong name of the.
I know, I'm
commission.
aware. I just don't worry about it because they'll fix that in the system.
Okay.
So as you're
and
looking at these, don't look at the request line, look at the
Okay.
explanation line,
Okay,
because the request line has to be from a list of options that they give us, and the explanation I can actually type out what it is that we're really looking for.
the police do in fact enforce the bicycle. So they're the ones, and of course we need more of them. I don't know, did we somewhere here yet, have we gotten to having more PEP officers and police officers?
Yeah, I think we're going to make it number 3. Police officers were number 2. PEP officers were number 3.
Okay, thank you.
We
Barbara?
have. No, go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, I thought it was Sahar.
don't
Just
see
a
them.
request, instead of e-bikes, can you make it e-vehicles? It's more than bikes. It's the scooters and the
Mhm.
other things also that are a menace. So if we could always say e-vehicles instead of e-bikes, that would be better,
Okay.
my opinion. Thank you.
I think Sunday service, restore Sunday service to one library without cutting weekday hours. That has been a priority. I'm assuming we still don't have Sunday service, but I'm not really 100% sure. Does anyone know if we actually have Sunday service? I could look it up at our libraries. So we don't. Okay, so restore Sunday service. Thank you, Judy. I skipped over, number 9, further increase funding for more permanent housing for homeless people. Do we want to take this out or leave it in?
We have it in the capital, don't we?
We took it out because it was built in this neighborhood.
Oh, that was a specific facility, you mean?
That was the safe haven one that you're talking about, I think.
So I guess we already have the facility built in the neighborhood. We don't necessarily need this here.
Right.
Although that's not permanent housing,
Mm,
right?
true, true. Judy and Barbara, what are your thoughts?
I think it should be kept in. Do you hear me? I think it should be kept in. There's different facilities and we could use more. We have, for instance, the Women in Need on 91st Street. Nobody even knows it's there, but there's other facilities. There's the Doe Fund that's on 86th Street. We have a few, but we really can use a lot more, and they're not an intrusion on the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
The ones that are living, what we're talking about are people that are functioning. Do you agree with me? I mean, Will, I think would probably agree with me.
Okay, Barbara, we just, sorry, I guess it was Judy who had her hand up next.
No, she's put it down.
Okay. So we have libraries, rodent extermination. Are there areas that so I think we're up to number 15. Are there areas that we could point to? Because it seems like there are rats everywhere.
So
At our last full board meeting, 84th Street between 3rd and Lex was mentioned repeatedly as having a lot of rats.
And wasn't it 85th as well? That was the issue about where Jacques.
Yes,
restaurant
Jacques,
is?
where Jacques was. I'm
Correct.
sorry, I meant 85th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So you have 12 that is actually for the health department for rodents. And then you have 15, which is for rodents in parks. And they are two separate agencies that you have to make two separate requests to.
Okay. Are there specific areas that we can point to in the parks? I know I have seen the rodent holes when I walk along the Esplanade, but I don't necessarily want to go looking for them. Judy?
I just think the rats are all over. I don't think you need specific holes, but I'm looking at 14, which is the PEP officers. I thought we moved them up to number 3.
Yes.
We did.
This
Oh,
is from last
okay.
year.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. Okay. 16 is recycling. Is that something that we need to increase recycling? Barbara, that's your specialty.
I don't know the answer to it because composting will alleviate a lot of recycling and garbage, I think. I mean, it's so new. I don't know how it will be. So I don't know what to.
Should we just say enhance funding for composting and organics collection?
Sure. Although recycling is not organics necessarily. I'm not sure the difference. I need the meeting because I'm not sure what will be recycled and what will be composting.
So I think the original message of this item many years ago was that you were trying to divert things from the landfill. So that's both recycling programs and composting and organics as well.
Well, it does seem like side businesses have been set up, collecting all the cans that you can return for 5 cents.
Right.
Judy?
Okay.
And that won't be composting. The
Yeah,
bottles won't be composting.
on the composting, I know I just spoke to my building manager today because there was a very good article in not this week's, last week's Crane's full page article. I gave it to him. Should have made a copy because it explained the composting step by step by step. And he told me, he said, we can't, I'm waiting for my bin. The city is far behind. They don't have the bins that they're supposed to have, that they're supposed to distribute to all the
Called my
buildings.
manager and I didn't get to it today.
Yeah, well, you might get the same answer if there's no bin in.
Okay.
The city is waiting for the bins. They don't have enough bins to distribute to the buildings. But the article was very interesting because I don't have any place to put composting, but it told you how in the house to take care of your, your vegetables and your the part that you're going to compost, and you put it in the freezer, actually.
Yeah,
There-
but if they have bins,
You've got it.
go down.
Then when you
further.
have enough, you take it down and put it in the bin in front of your
Right.
building. But if
There
there,
are a number of those orange composting bins on street corners, or at least there are.
However, one of the questions I have is where does that go? And what we learned at one of our meetings, that's a hard, well, I think remember, is that sometimes they go off to Newark where they're made into natural gas, which is better than non-natural gas, but still not the same as what the green markets used to do, which is to process it to really go into the dirt. So I don't know where the city is planning and taking it. This is why I don't know the answers. I want to learn it, and that's why hopefully we'll have a meeting at the end of October about it.
Okay.
Stay tuned. So a lot of
Um,
them just don't understand, and there will be some overlap. For instance, paper will no longer need to be recycled, can be composted. I'm not sure if, like, for instance, political flyers can be composted. I'm not sure, or, the J. Jill, brochures I get every day can get composted. I don't know the answers to it.
okay, thank you. Number 17 is increased funding for services to older adults, home care, transportation services, Meals on Wheels, senior congregate care. I assume that's still a priority. I don't have any data on what's happened to their funding. I don't know if you have anything, Gail.
I don't have data on it, but certainly just given the responses from the survey, which spoke to programs in the social services arena and for seniors, I think and given the fact that almost 20% of our population happens to be seniors, I think it makes sense to keep this one in.
I agree.
Okay. 18 is audible, accessible crossing signals. I'm gonna say Craig, if he was on here, would still want to keep this in. Additional funding for children's services to prevent abuse and neglect. Do we have any specificity that we would want to add to that, number 19?
I think we should ask the youth committee if there is anything that's specific.
Okay.
Okay.
20 is the outdoor dining, what we talked about, moving that up. Department of Health and Mental Hygiene enforcement of all food and vendor rules. We talked about that with the sanitation. Truck traffic enforcement unit, is that still a priority?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know that we need additional bridge inspectors, that's something that we should be asking. There are rules about how frequently DOT has to do their bridge inspections, so I'm not sure why we ask for that.
I agree. I don't think we need that.
Okay.
Engineers will determine that in the appropriate agency.
Judy?
yeah, that, the bridge division is terribly understaffed. I just was speaking to Margaret Forgione about it because police, we have a section that they're doing, DOT is doing on the Esplanade, and they can't hire an engineer. They don't have the funds to hire an engineer to oversee the project.
But
And
that's
the
not,
project-
that's not bridge inspectors.
Well, that whole agency is in trouble, from what I understand. So, I mean, it's like probably every city agency is that we talk about is, but they particularly, because I was talking to her about a number of different issues, and they don't have enough people.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has difficulty hiring engineers, and the city's salary levels impact their ability to hire
Mhm.
engineers. I mean, I defer to other folks. I would take it out, but if folks want to leave it in, we can leave it in.
I would take it out.
I
Okay.
agree.
Number 24 is something that's been in a lot, and I don't know what, well, if we could scroll down a little, and I'm not sure what it refers to. Hire additional DOB inspectors for compliance and code enforcement, including for illegal signage, and hire auditors for applications. I have no idea what this refers to.
I can speak to it.
Sure.
There are very definite rules and regulations for signage on commercial, on storefronts, commercial entities. They have very specifics for dimensions, for where they can be hung. I'll give you two examples. For example, the church on the southwest corner of Park and 85th Street had those two long banners hanging off the facade of the church. That's a landmark, or in a landmark district. And it was illegal to put them there. It caused damage in the stone, et cetera, et cetera. The Department of Buildings had given them some citations, but the Department of Buildings also doesn't have enough inspectors. Another one is, for example, you all know Soul Cycle on 3rd Avenue and 83rd Street. They painted a sign on the entire side of their building. That's not legal. It's been up for however many, many, many years. There's no enforcement about taking it down. Years ago, for those of you who lived in the neighborhood, if you remember that the movie theater on 86th Street, which was then the Duane Reade, there was a big canopy is the wrong word, but there was a big overhead sign like for a movie theater that became illegal. We got that taken down. Now, in terms of zoning and the correct way of advertising your business, lighting, for example, there was an argument with the 7-Eleven who put a big lit sign on the outside of their building. I think they were on 2nd Avenue in the 80s. Anyway, it's that kind of thing. It's handled by the Department of Buildings. They are very understaffed, and it's a good idea to ask for more inspectors.
Can we move that to 29?
Well, what are you going to put in its place?
And just move that down and move other things up.
Okay, well, let's look at what follows and then decide.
So additional TEAs follows. I think I would recommend moving the request for additional traffic agents up higher on the list. It's an issue that frequently comes up. I don't know what other folks think.
I would move, as you're requesting the extra DOB people, I would move it to a 27.
Okay.
Move the other two up, and then have plant new trees at 28.
Okay.
And then we have an extra one we added. So now expand recovery assistance would become 29.
Okay. All right. I think that's good. Oh, can we, I think we have, provide more funding for voting locations, maintenance, staff mechanics. I think we talked at the last meeting about taking that one out.
Does funding have anything to do with voting locations?
I think, but isn't this a Board of Elections issue and not?
Exactly. That's why I don't
Right.
think it's necessarily our funding thing.
And then I think, can we take out the reference to low interest loans and grants for small businesses to recover from COVID-19?
Yes, I think so.
I think what the Small Business Committee was going to revise the language so that it would not be a COVID specific. But we do have small businesses that are hurting, that need more assistance. So we'll get I think we should have something in supporting small businesses, but not having it necessarily be linked with the pandemic.
Okay.
But if if a resolution comes out of your committee, wouldn't that be enough to send to the appropriate agency?
No, but I think it's still a budget request as well.
In other words, the amount of the Small Business Services Department's budget determines just what grants and small interest loans they're able to provide. So if their budget is enhanced, then you're more likely to be able to help your small businesses. I'd leave it in.
Can we go back? I'm sorry, I missed. What did you do with the traffic agents?
We moved it higher on the priority list.
So what number is it now?
That's a good question. We talked about, so we're moving, I think we talked about it in a couple of spots. So right now it's number 25. We're gonna make it 24, but we may want to move it kind of higher up on the list.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. We need more. We need more help, at least here in the 60s we do. And I'm sure it's all over the district.
Yeah, no, and it's something that
And
comes
they
up
don't have enough funding because we spoke to the 19th the 60s spoke to the 19th precinct about it, and they said they would talk to them. We gave them specific traffic areas, having to do with the FDR and bridge entrances and exits, and they just, yeah, for the UN, they found all these people they put in the area. Now they're all gone.
Well,
So-
we moved the police and traffic for the e-vehicles to 12, so we could then do further traffic enforcement at 13, right under that. Would you agree to that, Judy?
Yeah, fine, wherever, but I don't like it down at the bottom of the list. I think it's a problem.
Okay, we'll move it up. And Barbara?
Two things. One is the building. More than signage, what is the biggest pet peeve for me are the buildings that they raise the buildings, RAZE, the buildings, put up this wood paneling around that is always graffitied or has advertising. And from what I hear when I've talked to Mark Levine's office and Julie's office and so on, is that is illegal. It should be removed. And the building department is responsible for it. So when you do the building inspectors, can you add that issue also of just maintaining the structures of the buildings to be proper? And the second, again, I would request something about maintenance of the sewers. I think we never added that in. That really is.
We
I'm
did.
sorry. You did? Okay, fine.
Catch basins, right?
You did? Okay.
And okay. I'm gonna add DOB inspectors of.
So, hello.
Okay. All right, I think we have gone through everything.
And now we have to determine the 3 major priorities for the district.
Yes. Which I think are affordable housing, police, or crime and public safety. Well, what do we currently have? We have affordable housing.
Housing, parks, and open space, and quality of life, including parks.
Isn't safety in the quality of life? Shouldn't safety be the priority?
We certainly can make it the number one priority. It's just falls into that particular
I would
category.
highlight it. If you agree, I would highlight that.
Right, so if we talk about quality of life and then highlight especially,
Crime reduction.
crime and, Mhm,
Crime reduction.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, terrific. Now, I think there's one final issue. In each, I think there's 7 major categories. In each section, you kind of have a narrative area where you can talk about what the priority is. And we generally say, or we have in the past said, all of the above or everything, but do we want to be more specific? Well, what are those 7 general areas? It's like health and human services. Oh,
Yeah.
and before I forget, one of the things, there were 2 things that folks had email requested, which I think should be in here. One was for air conditioning at JREC, the Julia Richmond Education Complex, and another was additional funding to support Kohler on Roosevelt Island. So we should probably squeeze those in somewhere.
Right, so Kohler would be expense, and then JREC would be capital.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but didn't JREC get some funding for air conditioning?
Oh, as part of the MSK deal?
Yes,
No, that
they
was
did
No,
get
no, no,
money.
that's
Yeah.
183 that got air
Right.
conditioning as part of. No, I thought they got that
I
from
think it
maybe the
was,
blood center money.
I think there was a problem, according to Russell, in their performing arts center in the auditorium, that the air was an issue, but also that the seats were torn up.
Oh, the seats
there
are the
were-
worst seats in New York City in that auditorium.
Right, and that, well, we can certainly list that, and I can go back to Russell and get a clarification. If
But
it's any,
I can call the principal over at the school
great,
who's in charge and find out exactly what they got funding for.
well, that would be terrific, Judy.
I'll
Thank
call
you.
him tomorrow
Okay, terrific.
and let you know if
Thank
he
you.
gets back to me.
So
So
you're asking about those 7 policy areas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I went through them earlier, but you have healthcare and human services is your first one. And those are the list of options that are available for selection. Zoom out just a little bit so you can read the ones at the bottom. And the green on the side tells you which one was chosen. So in this case, it was healthcare and substance abuse treatment programs. So the next policy area was youth education and child welfare, with after-school programs receiving the top number of votes. Do you want to go over these one at a time, or do you want me to get
Why
list?
don't we just take the results of the survey and put that in our narrative for priorities? I mean, there had to be a reason we took the survey. So if we want to acknowledge the results, that would be the place to do it.
I would agree with Michelle. What do you think, Gail?
I agree too. I think it's a good idea.
Barbara, you have your hand up. You haven't, there
I
you
was just going back to Kohler. I sent you something from Russell. You know, he's in the task force. It's something very specific they're asking for. My memory is that it's for funding for
Higher
personnel.
salaries for nurses. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, okay.
which,
Just not general, but something very specific he wanted. There was a question because somebody else had stopped me and said that she wanted funding for the building and he disagreed. So that's why I want to be specific about it.
okay. All right, so I think we have addressed all of the issues. We'll update the language in the in each of the sections and coordinate that with the committees. One question I do have, the kind of description overview of the district seems fairly dated. I don't know if anyone wants to take a shot at kind of updating that.
Well, our statistics go back to the census of 2020. Overall, as far as
But we talk about
population,
like
right?
the 1999 median household income.
So is all this information not correct? Like 21% are seniors? I mean, are there updated numbers?
I think that I think the 21% is correct. Because that's in some of the census data City Planning Commission provided. I mean, I guess these are all, except for updating from the 1999. And just when you get a chance, take a look at this section and let me know if you think there's some update that should be done.
Well, unless we have another place to get the stats, we have no choice but to use the stats of the last census. You know, unless there's another place to get the statistics.
No, correct. But I think even if you maybe scroll down, so the overview of the community district, there's another section that just seemed fairly dated. Maybe I'm missing that.
you know what section it might be? I mean,
Maybe
sure,
that was
there
it.
are
I'm just-
plenty of sections, but
I would trust the co-chairs to just bring the language up to date.
Okay, we can do that.
Right, I'll look and see if I'll look at that section, please, see if I can get updated numbers.
Okay, or even just kind of the description of the
right.
the district, if that's correct.
Okay.
I don't know if we here or somewhere, but do we want to talk anywhere about the fact that we have a lot of, as the rest of the city does, a lot of empty stores and you know, it's not all roses up here.
Yeah, but not in the budget. I mean, they're privately owned property. I don't see what our budget has to do
Right, but
with.
setting the stage to give
If
a
if
better
those
picture
stores
of-
are rented, they bring in taxes, it
There's
funds,
no question. But that would be
et
for the
cetera.
small business services.
It just seems that that we might want to say something about that somewhere.
No, but that's an excellent point, Judy, and maybe something that we put in the overview of the district.
In the overview, right? That we've noticed an increase over the years. Actually, Gail Brewer, I think, did an accounting was it 22?
But
So
that was, you know, we had COVID, so that accounted for a lot of
whatever, but I think
whatever.
that's the last
So
counting.
her accounting would be a little out of date now. COVID.
No, but the Patch article today, I think it was today, talking about another Dwayne Reed closing in the
Oh,
area.
yeah, on 2nd and 72nd, 79.
79.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is in this general catchment area, it's become increasingly more residential. So if you go just from 86th Street and 5th, just go across to East End, and then kind of go from 84th and let's say Lexington 3rd, 2nd and all, we're finding that more and more of the smaller businesses are not, sustainable. And where we used to have more commercial entities, we don't have those to
Well,
the
we have a
same
lot
degree.
of new residential high-rise construction,
Well, exactly, but that's very different,
right?
from sustaining a quality of life for residents when you do have that.
Well, I don't know
more
under what
commercial mix.
zoning, if they're under the R10, are they supposed to have commercial at the base? We don't, some of these buildings aren't finished yet, so we don't know what it's gonna be.
What they'll bring in, but we do know that I can look back. I remember, Judy, you had someone who had worked with you and Barry, who during COVID took a look at Second and Third Avenues and at the various small businesses and how many really had not made it. And we might be able just to take a look at that and then extrapolate and see where we are now. I'll call the folks at the Department of Small Business
was gonna say,
Services, because sometimes they have that info.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to look. I can't remember
trying to
doing that offhand, but I trust your memory better than mine.
I remember, and Alita may well, have it in
Yeah.
the files or
Well,
in the minutes. I'll take a
and-
look.
And something John Phillips brought up is that a lot of the cannabis shops in the district, many of which are illegal. I know there has been some effort to shut them down, and I have seen some that have, but John had mentioned that the rents that they're paying for very small spaces are other small businesses can't afford.
Yeah.
So they're driving up the rents and impacting the viability of other small businesses.
Yeah, because they're selling a product and they can afford to pay the rent, even though what they're doing is illegal.
Well,
Another unintended consequences with the passage of even the legal ones that nobody thought about, so.
That's a whole other story, but
Right.
we still have a lot of empties where we didn't have them years ago. And mostly when I talk to people, we had a store at 63rd and 2nd that everyone in the neighborhood loved, either eat in or take out, bakery, but full meals. And he said, he just went crazy on my rent. He said, he had a pretty good business, but he said, I just couldn't stay here for that rent and make a living. And now I see there's a big sign in the window, we're going to have B&B bagels in that location. So I wonder, how long are they going to be there?
am I unmuted?
We have tons
Yes.
of empties. It's just very sad. And the
is.
people who
Yeah,
are
am I
in business,
unmuted? There's another issue. The other issue is in my neighborhood in particular, there's so much more construction, but they don't construct. What they do is they knock down the building, including the stores, and leaving them as empty lots. So we've lost stores, which may mean that the others are more competitive in terms of working with it. And that's been a great impact. So what I see is on 86th and 2nd Avenue where Gracie's Diner used to be. It used to be the end and then Gracie's Diner. They shut all the businesses. It's been for years now, since before COVID. All the businesses as well as all the people. He then rented to an illegal COVID shop, not COVID, cannabis shop that has been closed down, and there's a sign, a store for rent. So I guess he's renting the store again. But meanwhile, all of the people are out, all the other stores are out. And in terms of the cannabis shop, I haven't seen an illegal one in a long time in my neighborhood. They're all shut down.
not down here, Barbara.
Not down there? Down
I
up
just
in
I got a complaint about one on 2nd Avenue, an illegal one.
Second where?
There are a lot of them, Barbara.
80 something, I don't remember. I have it in an email.
I'd be curious to see. The one in the 90s.
Come down to the
shop that's
60s.
closed.
All these small shops I mean, they're selling legal things along with the illegal cannabis.
Those are that was different than the ones that had the neon balloons and everything.
Yeah,
I haven't seen any. The smoke shops that was selling smoke things plus illegal. I just saw one closed in 90s and Second, maybe 89th Street and Second Avenue that was there for a long time. So we're making some progress in closing them down.
We are, but there are still
no, but I think
more.
these are good points to add to the description, so thank you.
But
All right,
we have a block, Barbara, like you talk about, and it's got fencing all up, and the corner building on the block is still standing because there's one woman who's either rent controlled or rent stabilized, and they've offered her a fortune to pay her out and relocate her and give her plenty of money, and she just won't go. And they have a truck in the street to give her heat in the winter and air conditioning, and they can't tear that block down. They want to sell that desperately because they can't get rid of that corner building because of the one lady.
We had that off Lex in the 60s, if you recall, for a decade,
What
and they
about the
built
one
around
on
them.
86
They built
between
around it.
first and Second that goes all the way over to 85th, goes over to First Avenue.
Yeah,
to
but
85th. That's
those
been
are the
20
ones.
odd years.
so I think we're digressing a little from the budget discussion. So if I could, I'm not sure if we have to take a vote on this. Can we defer to Gail and myself to put the list together based on
Yeah,
the,
based on our commentary and
Yes.
what we did. And also I would leave it to you and Gail to do the descriptive part of it.
You do technically need to vote on it so that you have something to refer to the board at full board. So it could just
Okay.
be similar to what you just said.
To approve our discussions of tonight based on Gail and Felice's
And the changes that we made.
and the changes we made.
Second,
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So it is Gail, Michelle, Judy, Barbara, and myself are the only ones still here. Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you. Do
Really
we have
appreciate
a
your help.
thank
motion
you.
to
Great
Thank
job.
you, Felice and Gail and Will. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
you
everyone.
all.
Have a good evening, all.